Welcome to another episode of Your First 1,000 Clients. I'm your host, Mitch Russo, and I am in business and work with clients every day. Together, we create businesses that serve others as our highest priority. I am glad you are here, and that means you are ready to grow. The value of anything in this world is partially subjective, partially practical. Gold has intrinsic value, but mostly its value is subjective. It has been used as currency for thousands of years with little practical application. Silver, on the other hand, has a very practical application in many aspects of product manufacturing, healthcare, and aesthetics. But there's one type of silver that's the most valuable of all, and you are about to discover a silver more valuable than any metal or substance because of its influence on the outcome of your life. My guest today is a respected business consultant sought by Fortune 500 companies and happens to be a world-class hypnotist performing on major stages in Las Vegas. He's been a guest on Howard Stern's show, David Letterman's show, and happens to have changed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. I'm about to introduce the most valuable silver you will ever know. Welcome, Marshall Sylver, to the show.
Hey, Mitch, that is without a doubt, in 33 years of teaching people and 49 years of being on stage, the very best introduction I have ever received. Thank you.
My pleasure. I love taking the time to get to know my guests and crafting this little story that sort of warms my listeners up to exactly what we're going to do today, because we have a big plan today, Marshall. Marshall, today we're going to change some lives. You ready for that?
I am ready for that.
Awesome. Again, as listeners to the show know, I love to start out by going back to the beginning because we all start from the same place. So, Marshall, give us an idea of how you got started.
I was born and raised on a farm in Michigan. We had no running water. We had no electricity. Often we had little, sometimes no food. Twice, my 9 siblings and my mom and I were homeless. One time we lived out of a motel room that the people were kind enough to give us for the 30 days. The second time we lived out of a station wagon. The second home I lived in a cold Michigan winter, the local community came together and they realized we were going to die in the car. And so they renovated an old chicken coop. And at 7 years old, I moved into the chicken coop house. It had running water. It had electricity. Other than clucking from time to time when I get happy, no adverse side effects.
I got to interrupt, but I got to ask you the question. Do you love eggs?
You know, I do. I love eggs. I love chicken. I've had pet chickens actually through the course of my lifetime as pets. These days, my life is very, very different based on the things we're going to talk about on your show, actually. Right now, I am at my vacation home, which is right on the ocean in Southern California. I am looking out my window, watching the waves crash on the edge of my property. My main residence is in Las Vegas. It's 17,000 square feet. We call it Prosperity Palace. It's been a long, amazing run. I'm very grateful. And here we are.
Absolutely. Now, Marshall, I have to ask you, because a lot of what you have today seems unreal to most people, but you went from the chicken coop very quickly in your story to your beachfront property. Give us a little bit of what happened in between. Where was the switch that flipped that made all the difference for you?
I am, at my core, a hypnotist. And through the course of the last 33 years, I've realized that ultimately everything is hypnosis, that ultimately everything is what we perceive it to be. So back in my teens, I always worked very hard. I would hold down 2 or 3 jobs. And I was at my high school. The high school had brought a stage hypnotist in to do a performance. And he came in, he did the show because I was a magician as a young kid. I liked getting on stage. And so I volunteered for the show, got up on stage. And at one point, he gave me a suggestion that when he said the words "Sonny Boy," I would stand up from my seat in the audience. I'd walk back to the stage. I'd fall on my own butt. I'd roll my pant legs up above my knees. I'd climb on his lap. I'd put my thumb in my own mouth and I'd say, "Sing it again, Daddy." And I remember going back to my seat, thinking to myself, there is no way in the world I'm going to do this. I am already self-conscious. I'm socially awkward because I've worn my sister's clothes to school for the most part all of my life. I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of the other kids. And yet I go back to my seat in the audience, and I felt almost like a magnet was pulling me back to the stage. He says the words "Sonny Boy." I stand up from my seat. I walk back to the stage. I fall on my butt, roll up my pant legs, climb on his lap, put my thumb in my own mouth, and I say, "Sing it again, Daddy." And it was one of those profound turning points for me, because I went home that night and I thought to myself, was I actually hypnotized, or was I just doing what he told me to do? And I thought about it. I thought, well, what if he told you to be confident? And just because he had told me to be confident, I became confident. What if he had told me to get off drugs? Because at the time I was a drug addict. I thought, what if he told me to go out and be a multimillionaire? And in that moment, I realized that if he had told me that and I believed it to be true and I went out and took those fearless actions, that's the result I would have produced. I also realized in that moment, if that was hypnosis, which it was, then this could be one of the most powerful forces on the planet. It took me a little while. I was 16 then. I hypnotized my first subjects at 17. I hypnotized 3 people in a row, actually. The first was a girl that wouldn't have anything to do with me. And then after I hypnotized her, she wouldn't leave me alone. The other 2 subjects were just incidental people. And then what happened, though, is my 4th, 5th, and 6th subject that I went to hypnotize, they didn't respond. And so even though I had had success with 3 subjects, the next 3 didn't respond, and I just let it go. I just said, you know what, maybe I lost my power. Didn't fully understand what it was all about. Fast forward, I'm 21 to 23 years old. I go through 8 jobs and 8 apartments in 2 years. Because I was really just searching for who I was. I was searching for my legacy. I was searching for what would likely be my profession for a lifetime. I was doing some DJ work for a mobile DJ company, and we would do wedding receptions. We worked on the military base, and I was making $250 for 4 hours of my time, which was decent money. Also doing something that I liked. And there was another guy that worked with me, and suddenly he disappeared. And then one time I was doing a military base show, and I saw him, and I saw a poster of him. Turns out he had become a stage hypnotist. And I asked him, I said, how's that working out? He said, it's working out great. I was making $250 for 4 hours. Now I make $2,500 for 1 hour. I asked him where he studied. He told me where he studied. And I tracked down the guy, went to his seminar, and at 23 years old, invested every dime I had, $3,000 that I'd been saving for dependable transportation, invested it in the course. It was a 5-day, 10-hour-a-day course. And within half a day of watching this master, the best in the world at what he did, I realized that I knew what he was doing. I then learned I knew that I knew. And as they say, the rest is history. That $3,000 investment I made 33 years ago has come back as over $250 million at this point of my career. And as we're launching some very large projects, it will come back as over $1 billion in revenue to me.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I want to address the issue of hypnosis itself. Let's clear this up right up front. When you talked about clucking like a chicken, or when you talk about a hypnotist making you do something, would you agree that the art of hypnosis is to get somebody to do something that either they don't want to do or don't think they can do? What is your feeling about definition of hypnosis in that regard?
You said something, and again, I'm a semanticist, so the exact words that people use say a lot. And you said, get people to do something they don't want to do. Certainly, hypnosis is influence. And sometimes we don't even know what's in our best interest until after we've done it. In fact, sometimes people believe something is completely against their best interest, like buying something, for example. And later on, come to find out it was the smartest and best thing they could have done. So yes, my job is to assist people in making changes to their subconscious programming so that they believe in a different reality and act accordingly. If I were to program you to think the thoughts of a millionaire, to hold the belief that a millionaire holds regarding money or about life, you would then see the world through those eyes and you would approach it in that way and you would produce a similar result. There's no way around that.
So it's a shortcut in a sense, because the old saying, act as if and then you will, is still requiring someone to get the courage to act as if. What you're saying is using hypnosis, you influence the direction of a person's actions in a positive way. Well, at least we hope you influence them in a positive way.
Absolutely. And yes, what you just said is completely true. My job is to not teach a person. My job is to help them become a new person. So rather than being a pauper trying to be a millionaire, to help the person recognize they are indeed, with absolute certainty, a millionaire, even if the money has not yet been deposited in their bank account.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, you also said something about going and attending a course about learning how to hypnotize others. What did you do to hypnotize yourself? How did that take place?
Ultimately, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. Just the same as all learning is self-learning. You can have a brilliant teacher, and if the student is unwilling to learn, they never will learn. If they just resist the learning process, they won't learn. Hypnosis is the same way. Ultimately, every single person is in 100% control of their thoughts and emotions. Even if the thought or emotion was to give control to somebody else, that's the individual's choice. So once again, my job is to figure out where somebody wants to go, through objective reality, figure out where they are, regardless of where they think they are, and help them get to their destination.
So you said that people are responsible 100% for their thoughts and their emotions. Well, it doesn't look that way when we look around the world today and we see our jails filled with people who, of course, were all innocent. If you ask them, they'll tell you that. How does that actually translate from the idea of being 100% in control of your thoughts and emotions to actually doing something different that may be a risk for you in a positive way to advance yourself? How does that happen?
While we are 100% in control of our thoughts and emotions, we are not 100% in control of our environment or our world. You mentioned the people in prison. Yes, some of them are actually innocent and are there wrongfully. Many that claim to be innocent, of course, are not. And the challenge, the one that we're dealing with right now in the world in a huge way, is a world filled with people that are not willing to be responsible, that they're always the victim. They scream and they march for questionable causes, and all the while unwilling to be 100% responsible for their own situation. So the first thing that we've got to do to create our life on purpose is we've got to be willing to take full responsibility for our current circumstance. I was married twice before I met my one true wife, and I met her actually in your neck of the woods. I met her in Boston, Massachusetts, at a seminar that had over 1,000 people. And I had been married twice before. My first marriage was when I was very young, and we ended up being friends after we divorced. We just realized we weren't right for each other. My second marriage, I was married for 11 months, and the divorce took 4.5 years because my ex-wife was a very selfish human being. She was being paid spousal support by me, so she was making thousands of dollars on a monthly basis for doing nothing. I was paying her attorney's fees. I was paying my attorney's fees. And unbeknownst to me, she was dating the judge. So the divorce took 4.5 years. Here's the thing, though. Even though it was very unpleasant, cost me millions of dollars, I married the girl. And so nothing can take away my responsibility. I wouldn't have been in that circumstance if I hadn't asked her to marry me and then followed through and finished the marriage. And there were all sorts of signs that it wasn't the right thing to do. Yet I'm the one that did that action. If I could go back, would I change things? Probably not, actually. Because now I am married to the most amazing human being. I know that at least part of me had to go through the previous experience to acknowledge what I have. And therefore, I treat the woman that is my one true wife, the woman that I'm married to, Erica, I treat her in a way that the old Marshall never could have.
That makes a lot of sense. You used the word responsibility. I'd like to substitute that word. In my world, we call that accountability, personal accountability. So I am personally accountable first to myself. And that means that I know and must be aware of exactly what my actions have as an effect in my life and the lives of others. Tell me what you think about how people today can maybe change their lives and, in fact, grow their business much faster than they're currently doing it.
I have an expression that I use. If your phone isn't ringing, pick it up. If you're not getting reactive business, get proactive business. Ask yourself the question in any given moment, what is powerful, productive, and positive and leads me toward what I want? Do that action now. And that some is better than none. You may not be able to conquer the whole thing at one time, yet there is something, even a small action that you could do right now that will move you closer to where you want to go. I was consulting with a client of mine who's going through some challenging times. They are stressed, and they told me that at times they're depressed. And I said, when you find yourselves in those moments, do something that you know you can do successfully, even if it means organizing your sock drawer, even if it means clearing your desk, even if it means taking the trash to the curb. Do one thing that you know you can do well, that nobody can interfere, and then do another one, and then do another one. And then pretty soon you'll realize you're not in hell anymore. And yes, the distinction of the semantics between responsibility and accountability, my experience, there is no right or wrong. There's consequence. I didn't have kids, thank you, God, with my first two wives. I have 3 beautiful babies now, one about to turn 7, one that's 5, and one that's 3. And when I met my wife, I was instantly smitten with her. After we started dating, she asked, do you think you'll ever want to be married again? And I said, absolutely not. I have no reason for that. She said, okay, didn't get angry, didn't say, okay, next, that's what I want. She just stayed joyful. And I remember a couple of weeks after that, we were at an event, somebody else's event that I was speaking at. And the speaker said, I've never seen you so happy, Marshall. I've never seen you so much in love. And I said, I've never been this happy or this much in love. He said, when are you guys getting married? I said, none of your business. My bride put her hand on my shoulder and she said, whether Marshall and I are ever legally married or not, we will be together for a lifetime. And it was her uttering those words that I looked over at her and I realized it wasn't marriage that I was opposed to. It was divorce. And so what happens is there are aha moments, I call them turning points, where we get it. We understand the reason that we were dragging our feet or the reason we weren't succeeding at something. I've made a lot of money and I live an amazing lifestyle that I am extremely grateful for. There are many people that do things similar to what I do that have not created that kind of financial paradigm or financial reality. And it's not that it's not possible. It's that they look at the world in a different way. You know, as a performer, I love being on stage. I've been on stage since I was 7 years old. I have headlined, as you mentioned in your so eloquent introduction, on the main stage of most major casinos in Las Vegas. My last run was at a place called Planet Hollywood on the main stage of the theater there, 1,500 seat, gorgeous showroom. I had gone away for 10 years, had been doing some other endeavors, decided that I wanted to basically retire in Vegas with my show there, my big production show, where I appear on stage in a full-size helicopter and I hypnotize people to walk on broken glass or make their bodies human staircase while I walk up them with their necks and their ankles on supports. Before the show opened, I started interacting with some of the mid-level management people. And again, I don't judge people based on how much they earn. I judge people based on how they treat other people, including myself. And I was reminded very quickly the reason I wasn't there for 10 years. And the show opened up. And 2 weeks into the run, my mother died. And at the end of the month, I had done something in that showroom that had never been done since the showroom was built. We had turn-away business. We were sold out. The idea was that I was going to be there on an indefinite run. And at the end of the month, the landlord, who sublets from Caesars, came to me and said, we were at dinner, and he said, wow, you did something we haven't been able to do in 10 years. You sold the showroom out. I said, thank you. He said, we're so glad to have you here. We're going to have to bump your rent a little bit. And I said, really? To what? And he said, double. And I said, okay. He said, and then we'll also have to get 6 months in advance. That was definitely not in the agreement. And my own experience has been that when you encounter painful resistance, too much painful resistance, too much ignorant resistance, when there's resistance for no reason, then it's nature's way. It's God's way of telling you maybe you're not where you're supposed to be. And the reverse is also true. When things align in such spectacular ways, it has to be a gift. Then it's also something that even if you get minor resistance, you say, no, keep pressing. We're in the right place at the right time. Part of the responsibility is the thing you described, sensory acuity. Not only recognizing what's going on in your world, also recognizing the impact that you're having. And when you're on the right path, doors fly open. When you're on a path that maybe you thought was the right path, yet wasn't the right path, you'll find doors shutting down. So it's important to practice perfection. Believing that finding your life less than perfect is a waste of time. It is what it is. It is your life. Let it unfold.
I love the way you said that, Marshall. And I want to go back to one of the things you said. You were talking about other people who do what you do, and you said it's because of the way you look at your life. So the question is, how can we change the way we look at our lives to bring more of what we want, more prosperity, more love, more freedom, into our own world today?
First and foremost, money cures most things. You show me somebody that's wealthy, self-made wealth at least, I'll show you somebody that probably has a good relationship to money. They think money is a good thing. They believe that money can take care of good things. They like to sell things. I teach in one of my seminars a concept called velocity. Velocity pertains to economics, is the speed at which money changes hands. Well, let's imagine that I'm in Vegas. It's late, and my family's at the beach house, and I realize that I'd like to go be with my family. It's too late to call my pilot. I don't want to put him on the spot like that, so I'm just going to drive. It's a nice drive. I figure I'll meditate for the 4 hours it takes me to get from my home in Vegas to Carlsbad. Get on the road. It's Electric Daisy Carnival weekend, which is a big dance thing, 125,000 people there, many of them from Southern California. And so it's bumper to bumper traffic. And a drive that should take me 4 hours, I'm 6 hours into the drive, and I'm only 3/4 of the way there. So I think, geez, I need to stop. I either need to get a room or I need to get some coffee. I need to get something, though. I'm not going to make the rest of the drive. And so I pull over at this little flea bite town. And the town, I've never stopped at before because there's nothing there. There is a motel, which is actually an hotel because the letter M is broken on the sign. So there's an hotel there. There's a bar and grill there. There is a grocery store and there's a gas station auto shop. That's all. There's nothing else there. So I pull into the hotel and I go up to the counter and there's no cars in the parking lot, which lets me know there's nobody there. And the owner of the motel is behind the counter. And I say, how much to stay in your motel? And he said, it's $100 a night. And I look at him and I say, $100 a night? Oh, how can you do that? He said, we're the only game in town. And he sounds remarkably like Jack Nicholson from The Shining. So I'm a little bit concerned. I said, tell you what, I pull a $100 bill out of my pocket. I put it on the counter. I said, let me check out the room. If it's suitable, I'll stay. You keep the money. If it's not, I'm just going to come back, get my money, get a cup of coffee, and be on my way. He says, sure. I no sooner get out of eye shot. And he grabs the money, races across the street to the bar, and says to the owner of the bar, hey, Mac, this should take care of my tab in full. The owner of the bar takes the money, hands it to the guy seated across the bar, drinking at his bar, says, hey, Billy, this is for the groceries I bought at your grocery store. Billy takes the money, hands it to his drinking partner, Rod. He says, hey, Rod, this is for the repairs you did on my car. Rod winks at the woman at the end of the bar, hands her the money. He says, you know what this is for. She grabs the $100 bill, runs across the street, back to the motel, puts the money on the counter and says to her husband, hey, honey, here's the money I borrowed from you, paid in full. I decide I'm not going to stay. I come back out to the foyer, to the lobby, grab my money, and I'm on my way. The question I have for you and all your listeners, Mitch, is were all those tabs, all those debts paid in full? They absolutely were. They were paid in full. If I keep that $100 bill in my pocket, it has a velocity of 1. The second I put it on the counter and all the hands that it traded, it became a velocity of 6. The challenge most people have, the reason most people don't have what they want is they are unwilling to do 2 things. They are unwilling to buy, first and foremost. And more importantly, those that are afraid to buy are always resistant to sell. Because they don't buy and because they don't sell, their own personal velocity or economy is diminished. People that make money spend money. It's the bottom line law of economics. And so for me, I spend a lot of money. Like I said, I have a 17,000 square foot, $10 million home in Las Vegas. I've got a $10 million home on the ocean here in Southern California. I drive a Rolls Royce. I fly around in private jets. And I don't do any of those things to impress other people. In fact, just the opposite. I'm an ordinary man. I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out of high school to take on a job so my mother wouldn't kill herself working 3 jobs to feed the family. The point in all of this is that I am an ordinary man. I am not smarter than anybody listening to this program right now. I definitely am not harder working. I don't do anything I don't want to do. I only do what I love. I am not more creative. I'm not better. Look, let's not go that far. I'm not more humble. That's for sure. Which is another one of the things that gets in the way for people is they have programs in their brain that they think work and yet do not. One of those programs is don't show off in front of the other kids. Don't try to pretend you're better than they are. Well, what if you are? What if you had that programming growing up because your parents wanted you to fit in? And so you spent a lifetime putting a bushel over your light. And rather than just living at your fullest and being all that you can be, you taper it down because you don't want other people to feel bad about themselves. There's a book by a phenomenal writer. She wrote Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead named Ayn Rand. And Ayn Rand wrote a book that not many people know about. It's called The Virtues of Selfishness. And it's a short book. It's a short read. I actually read it the last time I was flying back from China. The book can be summed up in the warning they give you on a commercial flight. In the event of a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen masks will drop down from the ceiling. Please place yours on first, then assist the person beside you. And the reason you've got to do that, if you don't put the oxygen mask on yourself first, you'll pass out. And you won't be able to help the person beside you. You'll be useless. Both of you will be useless. So by putting that mask on first, what it allows you to do is then take care of yourself so that you can take care of other people. So I think that's another one of the things that gets in the way for people is they aren't selfish enough. And then the ones that are selfish are overly selfish. So you've got a society where the people that left town in Atlas Shrugged just throw their hands up and say, look, I'm willing to help you. I'm not willing to support you. You've got to learn to take care of yourself and be responsible. And so you couple that with the mindset, Mitch, of people not willing to sell, and not selling something that you believe in is doing damage to people you care about. If you believe in what you're selling, you have a moral and ethical obligation to sell it.
I completely agree with you, and I love the way you say it, too. I love the way that you say those afraid to buy are afraid to sell. I think connecting those 2 things together for many will be the first time they've heard that. It is absolutely true.
And the reason that is, and I just want to interject, is that every single thought we hold creates a physical response in our body. So if someone holds the subconscious belief of don't sell me anything, when they go to sell, because they hold that thought, they will telegraph that when they go to sell and they will not be successful.
You know, we talked before about hypnosis, and then you mentioned the term internal programming. So, Marshall, how do we fix our internal programming, and is hypnosis one of the ways we can use?
I have been involved in hypnosis, as I mentioned, since I was 16 years old, and I turned 56 this year. So that's 40 years of understanding and being involved in the process. I've had a phenomenal life. I'm very grateful. In fact, when I met my wife, that was the last piece that was missing from my life, was just a really exceptional human being to share my time with. And when we had our first baby, Sterling Sylver, my first son, he was born via hypnosis. Some people would say he was conceived via hypnosis, and I wouldn't really argue with that. But he was born via hypnosis at my home in Las Vegas, Prosperity Palace, in the bathtub with no drugs, no doctors, no pain. When I caught Sterling in my hands and I cut his umbilical cord, I made a decision in that moment that I would be retired forever, that I'd spend the rest of my life flying around with my beautiful bride and my son, and that we would just see the world, and I would spend all of my waking hours with them. And then my son Maximus was born in the bathtub via hypnosis, no drugs, no doctors, no pain. I caught him in my hands and said, I am so glad that I've been blessed in the way that I've been blessed, so that I can stay retired and spend all my time with my family. And then my daughter Prosperity was born, and I caught her in my hands and cut her umbilical cord. And as I was looking into her eyes, it occurred to me that little girls are very expensive. I probably should get back to work. And I decided that I was going to go back to work. And it wasn't that thought. It was actually, I was inspired. There was something when she was born, when Prosperity arrived, I said, I'm not done yet. And I don't know what I want to do, because there's a Buddhist curse that in my early 20s, I couldn't wrap my head around how it could be a curse. And the curse is, may all of your greatest desires be instantaneously fulfilled. With the marriage to my bride and the birth of my children, I had everything I wanted. I couldn't even imagine wanting anymore. I drive a Rolls-Royce Phantom. I have more cars than I have garage space. Like I said, I have 2 homes, so there's always a home that there's nobody there. I have more than what I need or wanted. And so I thought, gosh, what could you possibly want that would motivate you? And we have a program. It's called Turning Point. And one of the initial things the program is designed to do is to turn up people's wantingness. And I thought, well, it's not really for me that I would want something. So I said, what would you want for others? And I said, well, first and foremost, I'd like to give Erica a $1 billion check. I want her, even after I'm long gone or able to provide for her, I want her and the kiddos protected in a way that is unmistakable. I want my daughter to never be impressed by what your son owns. And so I said, that certainly could inspire me, not for me, for her. The second thing I thought was, if I come out of retirement, it's got to be a legacy project. It's got to be something that, in fact, after 5 years doesn't need me, that can run on its own. And so I realized that there is a space that is beyond programming. There is a space beyond belief. And what that space is certainty. Certainty is the absence of all doubt. Certainty is a knowledge that it is done, whatever it is, whether it's a certain marriage or you are a certain millionaire, or you live a certain life or have a certain family. That place of coming from certainty makes people respond differently. They don't slow down. They don't come from a place of fear. They come from a place of love. When you are certain that your success is a given, then you just continue to follow through. And so I'm launching 2 companies. I'm launching a company called Certainty Incorporated, which is a for-profit that utilizes the technology and the curriculum that I've developed over 30 years. And we're also launching Certainty Institute. Certainty Institute is a 501c3, a nonprofit, whose purpose is twofold. Number one, to lift up homeless people that want to be lifted up. And I'll clarify that. My mom, for the last 20 years of her life, after I retired her, after I started taking care of her, ran a homeless shelter down in San Diego, actually near Carlsbad, which is why I bought a house in Carlsbad to begin with. And she ran that for 20 years. We were homeless. It was near and dear to her heart. One day I asked her, of the homeless people that you take care of, how many of them don't want to be homeless? And I figured she'd say most. It surprised me when she said half. I said, what about the half that wants to be homeless? She said, they like the lifestyle. They like it. They get by. They don't have to work any more than they do. They get handouts and they like it. I said, tell me about the other half. She said, the other half are homeless because something happened. Maybe they fell into addiction. Maybe they got divorced and spiraled. Maybe they were fired from their job and couldn't get another job. She said they want their self-esteem back. They want their confidence back. And so Certainty Institute, that's one group of people that we want to serve, are people that want that hand up by providing free educational courses, by providing programs that would allow them to get back on their feet, to gain their confidence, to pay it forward, to become a responsible, contributing member of society. And then the other group of people that's very near and dear to my heart, partly because I have children and I can't understand anybody causing harm to children, is to expose and hold accountable people involved in child sex trafficking.
You have quite a mission ahead of you, Marshall, and I'm glad that you're doing these things. They're all super important. And you said again earlier something that really, really resonated with me. You said certainty is the absence of all doubt. I look at my own life and I look back at the time when I started my first company and we had $5,000 and a garage and a product. And when we created that product, I had certainty, but I also had fear. So there was this element of, I hope it works. I'm certain it will work, but I hope it works. And it worked. And it grew to basically a 100-person company. We sold it for 8 figures. It was great. But tell me the difference between somebody having such complete certainty that there is no fear.
I think fear is a shade of doubt. There's no way around that. I also think that fear is useful, though. I think fear means pay attention. I don't think it means stop. It means put attention on something. That which we experience fully vanishes. First and foremost, entering anything with doubt is silly. There's no point. It doesn't help you. Even if I'm certain of an outcome and I'm wrong, it's okay. Because approaching that thing with the belief that it's not going to work out increases the likeliness that it will not work out. Approaching something from a state of certainty and a position of certainty increases the likeliness of success many-fold. The idea of having a fear and doing it anyway is quite okay. Most people are well served to have a degree of fear so they don't step out in front of moving trains or do things that would cause them harm. The challenge becomes approaching something from a point of view that you never do it because of that fear and uncertainty. And so for me, I'd rather fail forward fast, figure it out, because oftentimes the only way we can know whether a decision is a good one or a bad one is to make the decision, even if it's a bad decision. The other thing I know is that not making a decision is making a decision for not. By not choosing something, I'm choosing its polar opposite, so I'm actually choosing something. And the universe has a funny way of making choices for us, whether we decide to or not.
Like you said, not making a decision is making a decision. What I fully understand and have experienced in my life is the idea that what we experience fully vanishes, because the fear of getting on stage, the fear of borrowing money to start a business, the fear of learning a new skill and spending a lot of money to do it fully vanishes when we do. That's what you meant, right?
That's 100% what I meant. That which we experience fully vanishes. Somebody is concerned about their financial circumstance. And because they're concerned, they're afraid to look at their bank account. 2 things. Number one, it's either better or worse or exactly what you think it is. And knowing it will be useful. Sometimes people will get out of shape and they're unwilling to step on the scale and say, okay, what's the score right now? Sometimes people know their relationship isn't going well, yet they're afraid to ask their spouse, how are we? When you've got to do that. And so rather than burying your head in the sand and pretending like nothing is going on, it is better to go to the doctor and get that checkup. It is better to check in with your spouse. It is better to take a look at your bank account and determine if it's not where you want it to be. Good. Feel bad. Feel that pain. In fact, even turn the pain up. A lot of times people don't have money because they have a comfortable amount of money and they never take any risks. You take a look at anybody that's been massively successful, like a Musk or a Sergey or a Brin or a Zuckerberg, and it all started with the smallest of things. Nike tennis shoe company was started on a waffle iron. Dell Computers was started in a dorm. Apple was started in a garage. And sometimes I think people don't realize all great things started small. So start already.
Exactly. And that's, again, what I tell my own clients. And that's what we do. I mean, honestly, everybody needs to pick something and get into action. And when you do, even when you fail, you've made progress. That fear I was talking about earlier, when I started my company, yes, I was afraid. And that fear motivated me. That fear kept me on the edge. So when somebody came out with a product that looked a little bit like ours, yes, I was afraid, but man, was I motivated to find out what it did and improve our own software to make it do it even better. So I totally get that. Marshall, this has been an incredible experience spending time with you today, and I look forward to spending more time with you in a few weeks at the Turning Point event in Scottsdale. Before I let you go, though, I have a question for you. This question is a question I ask all my guests. I like it so much because it helps me understand who they really are. So who in all of space and time would you like to have 1 hour to enjoy a walk in the park, a quick lunch, or an intense conversation with?
My mom. I miss her so much. She passed in 2013. She was the kindest human being I've ever known. She was a phenomenal soul who raised 10 children. And without a doubt, of any of the other minds that I could pick or talk to or know better, that hour would be best spent just with my mom, giving her love and being able to say thank you again and again and again and again for all that she's done. I don't have a firm belief in reincarnation. I do believe certainly in DNA. I get a sense that my daughter is my mom reborn. She's incredibly bright for a 3-year-old. We've, from birth, programmed all 3 children to know that they are geniuses, to know that they are loved, to know that the world is a better place because they're here. And my youngest, my daughter Prosperity, she has sensibilities like my mother does. One day I was sitting at lunch with her. She said, I remember when I was in mommy's belly. I said, you do? She said, yes. I said, what was going on? She said, my brothers were talking to me. I said, really? What were they saying? And she said, they were saying, can't wait to meet you, sister. Well, interestingly enough, they said it all the time. And so for her to have known that was just remarkable to me. And I laughed a bit. She said, I'm funny. I said, yes, you are. And then she said, funny means money, which it does. And I said, you're just remarkable. She said, Daddy, can I share a secret with you? I said, sure. She ran over to my chair. She whispers in my ear, I have an attitude of gratitude. I said, yes, yes, you do, sweetheart. My mother lived an incredibly hard life. She was very poor and she was abused on many occasions by many different people. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to give my children a childhood that my wife and I didn't have for sure. Also a childhood that my mother didn't have. And so whether it's just a fantasy of mine that makes me feel good or not, I don't care. My mom is definitely the person I would want to talk to, which often gives me pause when I'm dealing with my own children to just be a little more patient, be a little more understanding and compassionate, and see the world from their viewpoint empathetically.
Listeners, let Marshall's story be a reminder that our moms, our family, the most important people in our lives, take a moment now, have the thought to get in touch soon before it's too late. Thank you, Marshall, for that. And now the final question, the grand finale question, the change the world question. What is it that you are doing or would like to do that truly has the potential to literally change the world?
I talked about it, and sometimes people hear people talk, and it's just talk. And I have an expression, a thing that I teach called entrepreneurial exaggeration. What that is people that accomplish great things don't figure out how they're going to accomplish great things before they determine they are. We put it out into the universe, and we say, look, this is what I'm doing. Coming out of retirement, a very comfortable and very joyful retirement, into what I knew would be hard work again. And certainly time consuming, and something that would consume me for the next 5 years in a huge way. It had to be something that was legacy-like. And so as I launched Certainty Institute and Certainty Incorporated, as we roll out Certainty, it is my intention to be awarded a Nobel Prize in Economics for making the world more certain, for bringing certainty to the planet. It is my intention that there will be, first across the North America, 100 certainty centers where people can go and be entertained by a show of certainty, be inspired by that show to want to learn more about the technology of certainty and certanology, and begin utilizing that in their lives to make it a more certain world, to help people be responsible, to help minimize government by minimizing dependency, to help expand personal responsibility, to help people not be in a position where they can be controlled by other people because they don't need other people's support. They might want support, but they don't need it. So that is my legacy piece, Mitch. That's the thing that is most important to me, is to be able to put people in a profoundly more responsible circumstance by joy, not by force.
Listeners, you are listening to Marshall Sylver on yourfirst1000clients.com. Marshall has made it clear that he's here to change the world. If you'd like to join Marshall and experience what it's like to work with such an individual, go to yourfirst1000clients.com, go to Marshall Sylver's show page, and at the bottom of that page will be every resource mentioned today, including a way to get involved directly with Marshall, both in his mission and in your own learning experience. Marshall, thank you so much today for your time. I can't wait to spend time with you in a couple of weeks. I'm excited.
I'm very excited to have you at Turning Point as well. It's going to be amazing. And for everybody listening to this program right now, I want you to know that there is a way for you to win at the game that you're playing. It's just different than how you've been doing it. And in order for things to change, you must change.
I love that. Thank you, Marshall. We'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch.
If you've ever struggled with completing training programs you purchased, finishing courses, or with your own business goals, you're going to love what I'm about to share with you. I have built a system where you can find your perfect accountability partner, just like Match.com, but for entrepreneurs. In fact, it not only matches you, but guides you through live accountability sessions with carefully crafted questions, which you select for yourself. And it includes exclusive membership in a private Facebook group that holds weekly masterclasses to help you grow. For listeners of my show, I want you to experience it for free. All you have to do is go to resultsbreakthrough.com and enter your event code, WINNER, WINNER, all caps, and you will get unlimited access free for 30 days. If you love it, then continue at a very low cost. So go ahead and try it for yourself and see why every great teacher from Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, and Daniel Pink have all recommended getting an accountability partner. Try it now for free. You've been listening to Your First 1,000 Clients with your host, Mitch Russo. Go to www.yourfirst1000clients.com for a free guide on how to get 1,000 of your own clients. And if you like this episode, please go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review.